I should have known something was wrong when she showed up at my door with 3 suitcases and a casserole dish. My name is Presley, and I'm 33 years old. I bought my house 5 years ago with my own money, my own credit, my own sweat equity. It's a modest 2-bedroom in a decent neighbourhood, nothing fancy, but it's mine. Or at least it was supposed to be. Surprise! Neil announced that Tuesday evening, his arm wrapped around a woman I'd only met twice before. Mom's going to stay with us for a while. Zuriel smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. I hope you don't mind, dear, Neil insisted. I stood there in my own doorway, still in my work clothes, watching this woman I barely knew wheel her luggage into my living room like she owned the place. Neil hadn't mentioned anything about his mother visiting, let alone moving in. How long is a while? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Just until she gets back on her feet, Neil said, not meeting my eyes. She's been having some health issues. Zuriel looked perfectly healthy to me. She was 58, well-dressed, and had more energy than I did after a 10-hour workday, but I bit my tongue. This was Neil's mother. I could be accommodating. Of course, I said. Make yourself at home. And boy, did she ever. Within an hour, Zuriel had rearranged my kitchen cabinets. You keep your spices in such an odd place, dear, she said, moving my carefully organised rack to a cabinet I could barely reach. This is much more practical. Neil laughed. Mum's always been particular about kitchens. I just want to help, Zuriel said, patting my arm with a smile that felt like a warning. A woman should know how to keep a proper house. I'd been keeping a proper house just fine for 5 years, thank you very much. But I smiled back and offered to make dinner. Oh, don't trouble yourself, Zuriel said, already pulling ingredients from my refrigerator. I brought everything we need, Neil's favourite. I watched her cook in my kitchen, using my pots and pans, while Neil sat at my dining table telling her about his day. They talked like I wasn't even there. When dinner was ready, Zuriel served Neil first, then herself, then finally remembered I existed. This is delicious, Neil said, not looking up from his plate. Just like when you were little, Zuriel beamed. Remember how you used to help me in the kitchen? They launched into a 20-minute conversation about Neil's childhood, complete with inside jokes and shared memories. I ate my food in silence, feeling like a guest in my own home. After dinner, I started clearing the table, but Zuriel waved me away. I'll handle this, dear. You just relax. She said it like she was doing me a favour, but something in her tone made it clear this wasn't a request. This was her establishing territory. Neil disappeared into the living room to watch TV, leaving me standing awkwardly in my own kitchen while his mother washed my dishes in my sink. You have such a lovely home, Zuriel said, not looking at me. Neil's told me so much about it. Thank you. I worked hard to buy it. Oh yes, Neil mentioned you had some help with the down payment. I frowned. Help? No. I saved for years and bought it myself. Zuriel's smile was sharp. Of course, dear. I must have misunderstood. But I knew she hadn't misunderstood anything. She was testing me, seeing how I'd react to having my accomplishments diminished. I'd seen women like her before, the type who smiled while they slid the knife between your ribs. That night, I lay in bed listening to Neil and his mother talking in the guest room. Their voices were low, but I caught fragments through the thin walls. Just needs time to adjust. Always been sensitive. Won't be a problem. I strained to hear more, but their voices dropped to whispers. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. She'll be out of here in a month. Just let her unravel herself. I held my breath, waiting for Neil to defend me, to tell his mother she was wrong. Instead, I heard him laugh. You're probably right, Mom. You usually are. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, those words echoing in my head. They weren't just planning to stay. They were planning to drive me out of my own house. The house I'd bought with my own money, my own credit, my own name on the deed. But here's what they didn't know about me. I don't unravel. I plan. It started with my coffee mug. I came downstairs the next morning and my favourite mug, the one my college roommate Zoe gave me with "World's Okayest Human" printed on it, was gone. In its place sat a floral monstrosity that screamed, "Live, laugh, love." Where's my mug? I asked Zuriel, who was already making breakfast like she'd lived here for years. Oh, that old thing! I put it away. This one's much prettier, don't you think? She held up the flowery cup like it was a prize. Neil walked in, kissed his mother's cheek, and grabbed the coffee she'd poured him. "Smells amazing in here," he said. "I made your favourite pancakes," Zuriel beamed. "Presley, there's some cereal in the cabinet if you want something quick." Cereal in my own house. While she made Neil a full breakfast. "I'll just grab something on my way to work," I said. "Suit yourself, dear." That evening, I noticed my family photos were missing from the mantel. In their place sat pictures of Neil and Zuriel from various family gatherings, none of which included me. "Where are my photos?" I asked Neil when he came home. "What photos?" "The ones from the mantel. My parents, my graduation, our wedding picture." Neil looked genuinely confused. "I don't know." "Mum, did you move some pictures?" Zuriel appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Oh yes, I was dusting, and thought these family photos would look better there. Your other pictures are safely stored in the hall closet." Stored, like I was being archived. "I'd like them back on the mantel," I said. "Of course, dear. Though these do look nice, don't they? A proper family display." Neil nodded absently, already scrolling through his phone. "Whatever makes you happy, babe." But when I checked the next morning, my photos were still in the closet. By the end of the week, my shampoo had been replaced with something that smelled like old lady perfume. My favourite throw pillows had vanished. Even my coffee creamer, the vanilla one I'd been buying for 3 years, was gone, replaced with plain milk. "I'm trying to help you eat healthier," Zuriel explained when I asked. "All those artificial flavours aren't good for you." "I'm 33. I think I can choose my own creamer." "Of course you can, dear. I'm just looking out for you." But her smile said something else entirely. The worst part was how Neil reacted when I brought it up. "You're being a little sensitive, don't you think?" he said that night as we got ready for bed. "She's just trying to help." "Help with what? I was managing fine before she got here." "She's going through a tough time, Presley. Can't you just be patient?" "What tough time? She hasn't mentioned any health issues since she got here." Neil's jaw tightened. "She doesn't like to complain. That's just who she is." Right. The woman who'd spent 20 minutes that morning explaining why my dish soap was inferior was someone who didn't like to complain. I started keeping track, not obsessively, just documenting. I downloaded an app called Daily Notes and started recording the little things. Day 8. Bathroom reorganised again. My face wash moved to bottom shelf behind toilet brush. Day 10. Came home to find Zuriel had helped by doing my laundry. 3 of my work blouses now pink from being washed with something red. Day 12. Neil's friends coming over for poker night. Zuriel suggested I give the boys some space and go to a movie. In my own house. The breaking point came on day 15. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard Zuriel on the phone in the living room. "Oh, she's fine," she was saying. "A little high-strung, but Neil's handling it well. You know how some women get when they're not used to sharing." Sharing. My house. That I owned. "She'll adjust," Zuriel continued. "They always do, just like his last one." His last one. I stood frozen by the refrigerator, sandwich forgotten. Neil had been married before. He'd never mentioned an ex-wife. We'd been together for 2 years, married for 8 months, and this was the first I was hearing about a previous marriage. No, this one's different," Zuriel was saying. "More stubborn, but don't worry, she'll crack. Just like his last one." The phone call ended, and I quickly busied myself with my lunch, mind racing. When Neil came home that evening, I tried to bring it up casually. "Your mum mentioned you were married before?" Neil's face went pale. "What?" "No, she didn't. I heard her on the phone today. She said something about your last one." "You must have misheard. Mum talks to a lot of people about a lot of things." But his hands were shaking as he opened a beer, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. That night, I lay awake listening to them whisper in the guest room again. This time I crept closer to the door. "She's asking questions," Neil was saying. "I told you this would happen," Zuriel replied. "She's getting suspicious." "What if she finds out about—" "She won't. Just stick to the plan." The plan. There was a plan. I tiptoed back to my bedroom and opened my phone. Time to do some research of my own. I came home from work on Thursday to find my living room full of strangers. "Surprise!" Zuriel called out from behind my kitchen island, which was now covered with appetizers I didn't buy. I thought it would be nice to have some people over. 8 people I'd never seen before were scattered around my house, drinking wine from my glasses and eating off my plates. Neil was in the corner, laughing, with a woman who kept touching his arm. "You didn't mention a dinner party," I said, still holding my work bag. "Oh, it was last minute," Zuriel waved dismissively. "I ran into some old friends at the grocery store. You know how it is." No, I didn't know how it was, because normal people don't throw dinner parties in other people's houses without asking. "Everyone, this is Presley," Zuriel announced to the room. "Neil's roommate." Roommate. The word hit me like a slap. Several people nodded politely, but I caught the confused looks. The woman touching Neil's arm raised an eyebrow. "Roommate?" she asked. "I thought you were married." "Oh, they are," Zuriel laughed, but it sounded forced. "I just think it's funny how young people live these days, like roommates who happen to be married." More polite laughter, but the damage was done. I'd been introduced as Neil's roommate in my own house. "I'm going to change," I said through gritted teeth. "Don't be long, dear," Zuriel called after me. "Dinner's almost ready." I went upstairs and texted my college friend Yara. "Emergency. Can you call me?" My phone rang 30 seconds later. "What's wrong?" Yara's voice was sharp with concern. "I need legal advice. Hypothetically, if someone is living in your house and—" "Presley, what's happening?" I gave her the quick version. Yara had been my roommate junior year before she went to law school. She knew me well enough to hear the panic I was trying to hide. "Document everything," she said immediately. "Photos, recordings, dates, times, everything." "I've been keeping notes." "Good. Keep doing that. And Presley, be careful. This sounds like a pattern." After I hung up, I changed into jeans and went back downstairs. The party was in full swing, and I noticed something that made my stomach drop. All the photos on the mantel, the ones Zuriel had replaced mine with, showed Neil and various women at family gatherings. Different women in different photos, but all of them looked comfortable, familiar, like they belonged. I was studying a photo of Neil with a blonde woman at what looked like a Christmas dinner when someone tapped my shoulder. "That's Sarah," said a man with grey hair and kind eyes. "Sweet girl. Shame what happened." "What happened?" He looked around nervously, then leaned closer. "You didn't hear this from me, but she left pretty suddenly. One day she was part of the family, the next—" He shrugged. "Zuriel said she had some kind of breakdown." My blood ran cold. "Breakdown?" "Mental health issues, apparently. Very sad. She seemed so stable when Neil first brought her around." I excused myself and went to the kitchen, where Zuriel was pulling a roast from the oven. "Can I help with anything?" I asked. "Oh, aren't you sweet. Could you grab the wine from the dining room?" I walked into the dining room and froze. Zuriel had set the table with my good china, the set my grandmother left me, but there were only 8 place settings for 8 guests. I wasn't included in the dinner count, in my own house. I went back to the kitchen. There are only 8 place settings. "Oh!" Zuriel looked genuinely surprised. "I'm so sorry, dear. I just assumed you'd want to eat in the kitchen. You know, more casual." "This is my house, Zuriel." Her smile faltered for just a second. "Of course it is, dear. I'll set another place right away." But she didn't move. We stood there staring at each other, and for the first time, her mask slipped completely. Her eyes were cold, calculating. "Actually," she said slowly, "the table's a bit crowded as it is. Maybe it would be better if you just grabbed a plate and ate wherever you're comfortable." "I'm comfortable at my own dining room table." "Of course you are, dear." But when dinner was served, somehow there still wasn't a seat for me. The guests were already seated, deep in conversation, and Zuriel was playing hostess like she lived there. I made myself a plate and sat at the kitchen counter, listening to laughter from the next room. Neil never came to check on me, never asked where I was, never introduced me properly to his friends. Around 10 o'clock, people started leaving. I was loading the dishwasher when I heard Zuriel talking to the last guest by the front door. "She seems nice," the woman was saying. "Oh, she is," Zuriel replied. "A bit intense sometimes, but Neil's handling it well." "Handling what?" Zuriel's voice dropped, but I could still hear her. "Well, the house is basically Neil's anyway. She just helps with expenses. But between you and me, I think she's getting a little too attached to the idea that it's hers." The woman made a sympathetic noise. "That must be difficult." "It is. But don't worry about Neil. He knows how to handle women like her." The door closed and I stood there with a plate in my hands, shaking with rage. Women like her. Like I was some kind of problem to be managed. Neil came into the kitchen, loosening his tie. Great party, wasn't it? You didn't defend me. What? Your mother introduced me as your roommate. She didn't set a place for me at dinner. She told your friends the house is basically yours, and you said nothing. Neil sighed like I was being unreasonable. She's just trying to fit in, Presley. She doesn't know how to act around your friends. They weren't my friends. I'd never seen those people before in my life. Well, they're family friends. Mum's known them for years. In my house, Neil. She threw a party in my house without asking me. It's our house. No, I said quietly. It's my house. My name is on the deed. I paid the down payment. I pay the mortgage. Neil's face darkened. So that's what this is about? Money? This is about respect. This is about your mother systematically erasing me from my own life. You're being paranoid. Am I? Then why did your friend think I was having a breakdown? Neil went very still. What friend? The older man with grey hair. He told me about Sarah, about how she left suddenly after having mental health issues. I don't know what you're talking about. But his face had gone pale and his hands were shaking again. Who is Sarah, Neil? Nobody. Just nobody important. He walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with the dishes and the growing certainty that I wasn't the first woman to be slowly erased from this script. But I was going to be the last. The next morning I installed security cameras. I told Neil I was worried about break-ins after reading about them online. He barely looked up from his coffee. Whatever makes you feel safe, babe. Zuriel smiled sweetly. What a smart idea, dear. You can never be too careful these days. If only she knew what I was really being careful about. I placed one camera in the living room, one in the kitchen, and one in the hallway. All motion activated, all recording to cloud storage that only I could access. Then I called Yara. I need to know about my legal rights, I said, walking to my car so they couldn't hear. If someone is living in my house and I want them out, what's the process? Depends. Are they paying rent? Do they have a lease? No to both. Neil's mother just moved in. Then legally she's a guest. You can ask her to leave any time. And if she refuses, then it becomes trespassing. But Presley, if Neil is supporting her staying, this could get messy. You might need to evict them both. Both? If Neil is choosing his mother over you and it's your house. Yara paused. How much does Neil contribute to the mortgage? Nothing. I pay everything. Jesus, Presley, get me copies of all your financial documents tonight. That afternoon, I went to the bank. What I found made my hands shake. Neil had somehow gotten his name added to my utility accounts. Electric, gas, water, all now showed both our names, with him listed as the primary contact. When I asked the customer service rep how this happened, she pulled up the records. It shows here that you called on the 15th to add your husband to the accounts, she said. You provided all the verification information. I never made that call. Well, someone did. The call came from your home phone number. I didn't have a home phone, but Zuriel had been making calls from somewhere. I immediately changed everything back to my name only and added password protection to all my accounts. Then I drove to my lawyer's office. I need to protect my assets, I told Ernest, the property lawyer who'd handled my house purchase. My husband and his mother are living with me, and I think they're trying to establish some kind of claim. Ernest was in his 60s, with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. Show me your deed. I pulled out the paperwork. Ernest studied it carefully. Good news is your name is the only one on here. Bad news is if they've been living there and contributing to household expenses, they might try to claim common law rights. Neil doesn't contribute anything. Can you prove that? I thought about Neil's empty wallet, his maxed out credit cards, the way he always conveniently forgot his money when we went out. I can get bank statements. Do that. And document everything they do in your house, every conversation, every change they make. If this goes to court, you'll need evidence. When I got home, Zuriel was in my bedroom. What are you doing in here? I asked. She looked up from my dresser, where she was folding what looked like Neil's clothes. Abu, I was just putting away some laundry. Neil asked me to organise his things. His things were already organised. Well, yes, but I thought this way would be more efficient. She smiled that fake smile. I hope you don't mind, dear. I know how busy you are with work. I minded a lot. But I also noticed she was folding his clothes into my drawers, mixing his things with mine like we were some kind of established couple who'd been sharing space for years. In the future, please ask before coming into my bedroom. Of course, dear. I was just trying to help. That evening, Neil came home with flowers. What's the occasion? I asked. Can't I buy my wife flowers? He kissed my cheek, but it felt performative. Mum mentioned you seemed stressed about work. I hadn't mentioned work to Zuriel. We barely spoke unless absolutely necessary. I'm fine. Good. Because I was thinking maybe we should have Mum stay a little longer. She's really enjoying spending time with us. How much longer? I don't know. A few more weeks, maybe a month. A month, just like I'd overheard that first night. Neil, we need to talk about boundaries. What kind of boundaries? Your mother went through my bedroom today. She's been rearranging my house, throwing parties without asking, introducing me as your roommate. She's just trying to fit in. By erasing me? Neil's face hardened. You're being dramatic. Mum's been nothing but kind to you. Kind? She's systematically removing every trace of me from my own home. That's not true. Then where are my photos? My coffee mug? My throw pillows? I don't know, Presley. Maybe you misplaced them. I misplaced my own photos? You've been under a lot of stress lately. Mum's noticed it too. There it was. The gaslighting Yara had warned me about. Make me question my own memory, my own sanity. I'm not stressed, Neil. I'm angry. Maybe you should talk to someone about that. Maybe your mother should find her own place to live. Neil's eyes flashed. She's family, Presley. Family comes first. What about your wife? Where do I rank? You're being selfish. I'm being selfish? In my own house? It's our house. No, Neil. It's my house. My name on the deed. My money for the down payment. My credit for the mortgage. Mine. Neil stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. But it wasn't the warm smile I'd fallen in love with. It was cold, calculating. We'll see about that, he said quietly. Later that night, I heard them whispering again. This time, I was ready. I held my phone up to the wall and hit record. She's getting suspicious, Neil was saying. I told you this would happen, Zuriel replied. She's not as weak as the last one. Sarah was different. She actually loved me. And look how that turned out. No, this one's smarter, more stubborn. So what do? We stick to the plan. Make her think she's losing her mind. A few more weeks of this, and she'll be begging to leave. And if she doesn't? Zuriel's laugh was cold. Oh, she will. They always do. Especially when they find out about the fraud. My blood turned to ice. What fraud? You sure the credit cards won't be traced back to us? Neil, darling, you worry too much. By the time she figures it out, we'll own half of everything anyway. I stopped recording and stared at my phone screen. Credit cards, fraud. They were stealing from me. But here's what they didn't know. I'd been recording everything for weeks. And tomorrow, I was going to start fighting back. I pulled my credit report at 6 a.m. the next morning. 3 new credit cards, all in my name, all maxed out. Total damage, $47,000. My hands were shaking as I called the credit card companies. The applications had all been submitted online using my social security number and personal information. The cards were being sent to a P.O. box I'd never heard of. We'll need to file a police report for identity theft, the representative from the first company told me. I know who did it. Mum, you'll still need to file a report. I hung up and called Yara. They're stealing from me, I said without preamble. Credit card fraud. $47,000. Jesus Christ, are you sure it's them? I recorded them talking about it last night. Send me that recording, now. And don't confront them yet. We need to be strategic about this. I was forwarding the audio file when I heard voices downstairs. Neil was leaving for work, but Zuriel was still here. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. Told you she'd figure it out eventually, someone was saying. A man's voice I didn't recognise. She hasn't figured out anything, Zuriel replied. She's just paranoid. Zuriel, this is getting out of hand. What you're doing to that girl. What I'm doing? I'm protecting my son, just like I protected him from Sarah, by driving her to a nervous breakdown. Sarah was weak. This one's different, but she'll break too. They always do. I grabbed my phone and started recording again. "And if she doesn't break?" the man asked. "Then we'll have to get creative. Neil's already working on the mental health angle. A few more weeks of this, and we can have her committed." "Committed? Zuriel, that's what, Jackson? Wrong. She's standing in the way of my son's happiness." Jackson. I knew that name. Neil had mentioned a friend named Jackson who worked in finance. Neil's happiness or your control? Same thing. I heard footsteps moving toward the front door. "I won't be part of this anymore," Jackson said. "What you did to Sarah was bad enough, but this girl actually owns the house. You're talking about stealing her home." "I'm talking about giving my son what he deserves." "He deserves nothing. He's a grown man who can't support himself." "Get out." "Gladly." "And Zuriel? That girl upstairs? She's not Sarah. She's not going to just disappear quietly." The front door slammed. I waited until I heard Zuriel go into the kitchen. Then I crept downstairs and slipped out the back door. I needed to find Jackson. It took me 3 hours and 5 phone calls, but I tracked him down at a coffee shop downtown. He was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-30s, tired eyes, wearing a suit that had seen better days. "You're Presley," he said when I approached his table. "You're Jackson. I figured you'd find me eventually." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit. We need to talk." "How long have you known Neil?" "Since college. 20 years. Jackson stirred his coffee absently. "I've watched him do this 3 times now." 3 times? Sarah was just the most recent. Before her, there was Monica. Before Monica, there was Ashley. My stomach dropped. What happened to them? "Same thing that's happening to you. Neil finds women who have something he wants. Usually a house, sometimes money. He charms them, marries them, then brings in Zuriel to slowly drive them crazy. And you just let it happen." Jackson's face flushed. "I tried to warn Sarah. She didn't believe me. Said Neil loved her, that I was just jealous." "What happened to her?" "Zuriel convinced everyone Sarah was having a breakdown. Paranoid delusions, erratic behaviour. By the end, Sarah was so confused she didn't know what was real anymore." "Where is she now?" "Psychiatric facility upstate. Last I heard, she still thinks Neil is coming to get her." I felt sick. "And the others?" "Monica lost her house in the divorce. Zuriel made sure Neil got half of everything, even though he'd contributed nothing. Ashley..." Jackson shook his head. "Ashley just disappeared one day, left everything behind and vanished." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're different. You're fighting back. And because I'm tired of watching Zuriel destroy people." I pulled out my phone and showed him the recording from that morning. "She said you were working in finance. Can you help me trace the credit card fraud?" Jackson listened to the recording, his face growing darker with each word. "I can do better than that," he said finally. "I can testify. I helped Neil set up that P.O. box." "You what?" "He told me it was for a surprise for you. Said he wanted to plan something special without you finding out." Jackson looked ashamed. "I should have known better." "Will you testify against them?" "Yes, but Presley, you need to be careful. When Zuriel realises you're not going to break like the others, she'll escalate." "Escalate how?" "With Sarah, she started claiming Sarah had threatened her. Made up stories about physical violence. By the end, she had everyone convinced Sarah was dangerous." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Neil. "Mom fell down the stairs. Says you pushed her. We need to talk." I showed Jackson the message. His face went pale. "It's starting," he said. "She's going to claim you attacked her." "But I wasn't even home. I've been here with you for 2 hours." "Do you have proof of that?" I looked around the coffee shop. Security cameras in every corner. My credit card receipt from buying coffee. Jackson himself as a witness. "Yeah," I said, feeling something cold and determined settle in my chest. "I do." "Good. Because this is about to get ugly." My phone rang. Neil's name on the screen. "Don't answer it," Jackson said. "Let them think their plan is working." But I had a better idea. I answered the call and put it on speaker. "Presley, where are you?" Neil's voice was tight with fake concern. "Mom's hurt. She says you pushed her down the stairs before you left." "That's terrible," I said calmly. "When did this happen?" "About an hour ago." "Interesting, because I've been at Grind Coffee on 5th Street for the past 2 hours, with Jackson." Silence on the other end. "Jackson?" Neil's voice cracked. What's Jackson doing there? Telling me about Sarah, I said. And Monica. And Ashley. The line went dead. Jackson was staring at me with something like admiration. You're really going to fight them, aren't you? I'm going to destroy them. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a hotel and spent the evening with Yara, going through every piece of evidence I'd collected. Bank statements, recordings, photos, credit reports, everything spread across the hotel bed like pieces of a puzzle. This is good, Yara said, reviewing the audio files. Really good. We can get them on fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. What about the house? That's the easy part. It's yours. Period. We file for emergency restraining orders tomorrow and they're out. And if they refuse to leave, then the sheriff removes them. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. The next morning, I drove home to find Neil pacing in the driveway. He rushed to my car as I pulled up. Where were you? He demanded. I was worried sick. Were you? Of course I was, after what happened with Mom. You mean the fall that never happened? Neil's face went red. She's hurt, Presley. She's been crying all night. I'm sure she has. I walked past him toward the house, but he grabbed my arm. We need to talk about your behaviour lately. My behaviour? You've been acting unstable. Mom thinks you might need professional help. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. Let go of me. I'm trying to help you. Let go. He released me, but his eyes were cold. You're not well, Presley. I'm perfectly well, but I won't be living here much longer. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done. I walked into the house, leaving him standing in the driveway. Zuriel was in the kitchen, wearing a neck brace that looked like it came from a costume shop. Oh, Presley, she said weakly. I'm so glad you're home. I was so frightened after what happened. What happened, Zuriel? You don't remember? Her eyes widened with fake concern. Oh dear, that's not good. Memory problems can be a sign of... I remember everything, including the fact that I wasn't here when you supposedly fell. But you were. You were so angry about the dinner party, and I was at Grind Coffee on 5th Street for 2 hours with witnesses. Zuriel's face flickered just for a second, then the mask slipped back into place. You're confused, dear. The stress has been so hard on you. The only thing that's been hard on me is you. I walked upstairs to pack a bag. I wasn't staying here another night, not until I had legal protection. But when I opened my bedroom door, I stopped cold. My closet was empty. Looking for something? Zuriel had followed me upstairs, the neck brace mysteriously gone. Where are my clothes? I donated them. You seemed so stressed about clutter I thought I'd help. You donated my clothes? Just the old things, the ones that didn't fit properly. She smiled sweetly. I kept the nice pieces, of course. I opened my dresser drawers, empty except for a few items I barely recognised. Clothes that were too small, too young, too cheap. Everything else was gone. You had no right. I was trying to help. You've been so overwhelmed lately, I thought... Stop! I held up my hand. Just stop talking. I grabbed what little was left and threw it in a bag. Zuriel watched from the doorway, that fake concerned expression never leaving her face. Where are you going, dear? Away from you. But this is your home. Yes, it is. And tomorrow you're going to remember that. I pushed past her and headed for the stairs. Neil was waiting at the bottom. You can't just leave, he said. Watch me. Presley, be reasonable. Mum's trying to help. Your mother is a manipulative psychopath, and you're her accomplice. She's family, and I'm your wife. Or was, until you chose her over me. Neil's face twisted. You're being dramatic. Am I? Then explain the credit cards, Neil. Explain the $47,000 in debt you racked up in my name. The colour drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about. Jackson told me everything. About Sarah, about Monica, about Ashley, about how you and your mother have been running this scam for years. Jackson's lying. Is he? Then you won't mind if I call the police and report the identity theft. You wouldn't. Try me. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then Neil's expression changed, became pleading. Presley, please. I love you. We can work this out. No, we can't. What do you want? I'll do anything. I want you and your mother out of my house. This is my home too. No, Neil, it's not. It never was. You contribute nothing. You own nothing. And after tomorrow you'll have nothing. I headed for the door, but Zuriel's voice stopped me. You know, dear, I'm pregnant. I turned around slowly. What? I'm pregnant, she repeated, one hand on her stomach. Neil's baby. Neil's face went white. Mum, what are you? It's a miracle, really, at my age. But the doctor confirmed it yesterday. I stared at her. You're 58 years old. 56, actually. And women my age can still conceive. It's rare, but it happens. You're lying. I have the test results if you'd like to see them. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket. It looked official, but something about it seemed off. This is insane, I said. What's insane is you trying to throw a pregnant woman out of her home. This isn't your home. It will be. When Neil and I have our baby, we'll need the space. I looked at Neil, who was staring at his mother with horror. Neil, I said quietly, tell me you're not buying this. I don't know what to think. She's 58 years old, Neil. She's not pregnant with your baby. 56, Zuriel corrected. And stranger things have happened. Not this strange. But I could see the doubt in Neil's eyes, the confusion. His mother had been manipulating him his whole life. And even now, even with this obvious lie, he wasn't sure what to believe. I'll be back tomorrow, I said, with lawyers and police officers, and both of you will be gone. We'll see about that, Zuriel said, rubbing her stomach. I don't think the courts will evict a pregnant woman. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. But as I got in my car, I was smiling, because I'd recorded the entire conversation. And tomorrow, Zuriel was going to learn what happened when you lied to the wrong person. I walked into my house at exactly 10 a.m. with Yara, a sheriff's deputy, and a folder full of legal documents. Neil and Zuriel were sitting at my kitchen table like they were expecting me. Zuriel still had her hand on her stomach playing the pregnant victim. Neil looked like he hadn't slept. Good morning, I said pleasantly. I hope you're packed. We're not going anywhere, Zuriel said. This is our home now. Actually, it's not. I pulled out the first document. This is a restraining order. You have 30 minutes to collect your belongings and leave. The deputy stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm here to ensure compliance with the court order. Neil stood up shakily. Presley, please. We can work this out. No, we can't. I handed him the second document. These are divorce papers. You'll also find a detailed accounting of the credit card fraud you committed. I never... $47,000, Neil, in my name, using my social security number. Jackson already gave a statement about the P.O. box. Neil's face crumpled. Jackson told you? Jackson told me everything. About Sarah, Monica, Ashley, about how you and your mother have been running this scam for years. It's not a scam, Zuriel interjected. Neil deserves to be taken care of. By stealing from his wives? By getting what's rightfully his, I laughed. Rightfully his? Neil has never paid a single bill in this house. Never contributed to the mortgage, utilities, groceries, nothing. He's been a parasite. How dare you? How dare I? You donated my clothes, threw parties in my house, introduced me as a roommate, and tried to have me committed, all while stealing my identity. The deputy cleared his throat. Ma'am, you need to start packing. We're not leaving, Zuriel said firmly. I'm pregnant. You can't evict a pregnant woman. About that. I pulled out my phone and played yesterday's recording. Zuriel's voice filled the room. I'm pregnant. Neil's baby. Neil's face went white. Mom, what the hell? It's a miracle, really, at my age. I stopped the recording. 58 years old, claiming to be pregnant with her son's baby. Even for you, Zuriel, that's a new low. I'm 56, she said weakly. You're also not pregnant. I handed her another document. This is a medical report from Dr. Martinez. You know, the doctor whose letterhead you forged for your fake pregnancy test. Zuriel's face went ashen. I don't know what you're talking about. Dr. Martinez was very interested to learn someone was forging his documents. He's pressing charges. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. I pulled out the final document. This is a forensic analysis of the pregnancy test you showed me. The letterhead is fake, the signature is forged, and the test results are fabricated. Neil was staring at his mother in horror. You lied about being pregnant? I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? From her! Zoriel pointed at me. She's trying to steal everything from you. She's not stealing anything, Mum. It was never mine to begin with. Of course it was. You're married to her. Marriage doesn't automatically transfer property ownership, Yara said, speaking for the first time, especially when one party contributes nothing to the acquisition or maintenance of said property. Who are you? Zoriel demanded. I'm Mrs. Lane's attorney, and you have 25 minutes to vacate the premises. Neil sat down heavily. This is really happening. Yes, it is. I sat across from him. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? I thought you loved me enough to overlook it. Overlook identity theft. Overlook being erased from my own life. It wasn't supposed to go this far. How far was it supposed to go, Neil? He looked at his mother, then back at me. Just until you signed the house over to both of us. Then Mom would leave, and we'd be happy. And if I refused? Mom said you'd break eventually, like the others. The others who you drove to nervous breakdowns and psychiatric facilities? Neil's shoulders sagged. I never wanted that to happen to Sarah. But you let it happen. I was weak. You were complicit. Zoriel stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. Neil, get your things. We're leaving. Where are we going to go? Neil asked. We'll figure it out. With what money? You maxed out all my credit cards on this scheme. We'll manage. How? I don't have a job anymore. I looked up sharply. You don't have a job? Neil wouldn't meet my eyes. I was fired last week for irregularities in my expense reports. You were stealing from your employer too? It wasn't stealing. I was just borrowing. Jesus Christ, Neil. The deputy checked his watch. 15 minutes, folks. Zoriel grabbed Neil's arm. Come on. We don't need her. Yes, we do, Mom. We need her house, her money, her credit. Without her, we have nothing. We have each other. That's not enough anymore. Zuriel's face twisted with rage. Fine. But don't come crying to me when you realise what you've lost. What I've lost? Neil laughed bitterly. I've lost everything, Mum. My wife, my home, my job, my reputation. All because of your schemes. I was trying to help you. You were trying to control me, just like you controlled Dad until he left. Your father was weak. No, Mum, you're toxic. And I'm done. Neil stood up and walked toward the stairs. I'll pack my things. Zuriel watched him go, then turned to me with pure hatred in her eyes. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You think you've won? I know I have. We'll see about that. She followed Neil upstairs, leaving me alone with Yara and the deputy. You okay? Yara asked. I'm perfect. 20 minutes later, they were loading suitcases into Neil's car. Zuriel was crying dramatically, but Neil looked defeated. As they prepared to drive away, Neil rolled down his window. Presley, I'm sorry for all of it. I know you are. Do you think you could ever forgive me? I looked at him for a long moment. I forgive you, Neil. But I'll never trust you again. He nodded and drove away. I stood in my driveway, watching their car disappear around the corner. Then I walked back into my house, my quiet, peaceful, empty house, and smiled. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more surprise for them. The silence in my house was beautiful. No fake laughter from the kitchen. No whispered conspiracies through thin walls. No passive-aggressive comments about my housekeeping. Just peace. I was sitting on my couch, the one I'd bought with my own money, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Presley? A woman's voice, shaky and uncertain. Yes. This is Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. I think we need to talk. My blood ran cold. How did you get this number? Jackson gave it to me. He said you might want to hear my story. Where are you? Mercy General. I'm finally getting out. I drove to the hospital that afternoon. Sarah was waiting in the lobby, thin and pale, but with clear eyes. She looked like someone who'd been through hell and somehow found her way back. You look like me, she said when I sat down. Before they broke me. Jackson told me what happened. Did he tell you about the house? Your house? My house. The one Neil lives in now with his mother. I frowned. Neil doesn't have a house. He was living in mine. Sarah's face went white. What do you mean? I mean, Neil has never owned property. He's been bouncing between women's houses for years. But the divorce settlement, Zuriel said he got half of everything. Zuriel lied. Neil got nothing because Neil contributed nothing. Sarah started crying. She told me I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that Neil deserved the house because he was the man. Where is your house now? I don't know. I signed papers, but I was so confused, so medicated. She wiped her eyes. I thought I was losing my mind. You weren't losing your mind. You were being gaslit by experts. Can I get it back? We can try. I called Yara from the hospital parking lot. I need you to research a property case, I said. Sarah Mitchell, fraudulent divorce settlement, possibly forged documents. I'll look into it. And Yara, I want to do something else, something bigger. What do you have in mind? I want to tell everyone what they did, all of it. That evening I started writing. Not just about Neil and Zuriel, but about the pattern, the systematic way they destroyed women's lives for years. I wrote about Sarah, about the others Jackson had mentioned, about the careful psychological manipulation designed to make strong women question their own sanity. I called it the Eviction Chronicles, how my husband and his mother tried to steal my life. I posted it everywhere. Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, Medium. I included audio recordings, legal documents, everything I could legally share. Within hours, it was viral. My phone started ringing. Is this Presley? The first caller was crying. I think this happened to me too. My ex-husband's mother, she did the same things. Then another call. And another. By the end of the week, I'd heard from 12 women. 12 women who'd been systematically destroyed by manipulative partners and their enabler mothers. Women who'd lost houses, savings, custody of their children. Women who'd been convinced they were crazy when they were actually being abused. We should start a support group, Sarah suggested when I visited her again. Help other women recognise the signs. I was thinking bigger than that. Like what? Like a podcast, a website, a whole movement. And that's what we did. Evicted by Love became a platform for women to share their stories, recognise manipulation tactics, and find legal resources. Sarah became my co-host, her story of recovery inspiring thousands of listeners. The response was overwhelming. Women from all over the country reached out, sharing similar experiences. We connected them with lawyers, therapists, support groups. We helped them document abuse, file charges, reclaim their lives. But the best part was what happened to Neil and Zuriel. Neil's employer pressed charges for embezzlement. The credit card companies pursued the identity theft case. And when other victims came forward, women from his past who'd been too ashamed to speak up before, the pattern became undeniable. Zuriel was arrested for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The fake pregnancy documents were just the beginning. Investigators found years of forged papers, fake medical records, fraudulent insurance claims. Neil got 3 years in prison. Zuriel got 5. But the real justice came from something I never expected. I was recording a podcast episode when Yara called with news about Sarah's case. We got it back, she said. The house, the savings, everything. The divorce was fraudulent. Neil forged Sarah's signature on multiple documents. How much? $200,000 plus the house. Sarah started crying when I told her, I can go home. You can go home. That night, I sat in my kitchen, my quiet, peaceful kitchen, and realised something. The revenge I'd planned, the systematic destruction of Neil and Zuriel's lives, had been satisfying. But this was better. Helping other women, preventing future victims, building something positive from the wreckage they'd left behind. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You destroyed my family. I knew it was Neil, probably calling from prison. I deleted the message without responding. Then I opened my laptop and started writing the next episode of our podcast. This one was about moving forward, about building something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. Because here's what I learned. Revenge might feel good in the moment, but justice, real justice, lasts forever. And sometimes the best way to win is to make sure no one else has to lose the same way you did. My house was quiet again, but it wasn't empty. It was full of possibility, full of purpose, full of the voices of women who refused to be silenced. and that was worth more than any revenge I could have imagined.